Welcome to this webinar titled Using the Blackboard Learn Grade Center. The presenter is Rex Suba, an instructional designer for the Office of Online Ed. He has been with UNLV OE since September 2008. Prior to that, he spent 6 years with the College of Health Social Services at New Mexico State University. From '87 through 2002, he was a full-time classroom teacher with the Norman Public Schools in Norman, Oklahoma. Rex is a self-proclaimed geek and enjoys keeping up with the latest in consumer electronics and gadgets. And I, Cody Simpson, will be the moderator for today's webinar, and we'll go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Cody. We have a very slim agenda, and as we progress through our app sharing, where you see the Blackboard Learn, what we'll be using as WebCampus in the fall of 2013. As you see that in operation in this webinar, you'll find that because of the slow updates on your end, that we have to be very methodical. I can't rush about because I'll be looking at one thing and you'll still be waiting for your screen to update. So as we proceed, these are the topics that this very basic presentation will cover. And we want to make sure that you always have an opportunity to ask questions at the end and to follow up. So if you have an instructional designer to whom you are assigned, any topics that we are not able to cover or do not cover in enough depth, please contact them after today's webinar. So we're going to start off what it is, how does it differ, and what are the differences between the needs grading choice and the full grade center. We're going to do some traveling. I have a number of virtual students so that we can maintain a FERPA safe environment. These virtual students do not really exist, so no actual UNLV students' data is exposed. Our virtual students are OE student 01, OE student 04, 05, 07, and 010. And so as you see us navigating the Grade Center, you're going to see that their content will be available either for a grade or some of these items have already been graded. Rounding out the rest of our agenda are manipulating Grade Center columns, uploading and downloading of grades, and working with just a couple of the available calculated columns. So without further ado, we go in. What is the Grade Center? This is the built-in tool for managing grades within Blackboard Learn. Again, what is going to be the underlying product that we'll be calling WebCampus in the fall of 2013. Please do not confuse this with the web grading tool that's associated with My UNLV, the tool that you use to actually post your final grades for the registrar website. The grades can be generated because of connection to a tool, or you can put them manually or arbitrarily. Examples of these would be attendance grades or participation grades, extra credit, etc. As with the Gradebook in the WebCampus that we've been using up to this point, for those of you that have been here prior to the summer of 2013, you do have limited online calculation capabilities. They're somewhat different and augmented over what you had in a previous product. If you're brand new to teaching online, then you will just have this one interface to learn and not worry about the predecessor. Please bear in mind that the Grade Center, along with other tools that are in Blackboard Learn, are not necessarily an upgrade. The evolution of the product we're going to was from another branch of a tree. What you call WebCampus right now came from a company called WebCP, which was acquired by Blackboard in the mid-2000s. And so there are a number of features that are similar, but there are significant differences. So this is a screen capture of what it looks like. You enter it by going into your course management area, and then you click the little triangle next to Grade Center, and you'll deploy the default menu that's available and see these kinds of details. And you can see our virtual students illustrated here. We'll actually go to a live version of this in just a moment. What are these differences that I'm hinting at? Well, among the things that you're going to find oftentimes will relate to their connection to the activities. So for those of you instructors who would go to your accumulation of items in the assignment Dropbox, there is not an area called the assignment Dropbox in this tool. It does exist in a form, but not with that particular name. You also have a number of smart views, filters that are either built in or that you can design yourself. Think of it as favorites or bookmarks that you create. You can base it on particular types of activities, or you could have it as different types of factors. Another item that we did not have before is grade exemption. My understanding is when we were using the previous product, you could download your whole course and then you could upload it. In this, there are very specifics that you can get as little as one column with comments to bring down and upload to your course. Notice that I have export and import in parentheses because, again, this is a different tool, and so in Blackboard Learn, it uses the terminology download and upload. You'll see those as we travel through the real product. Continuing, the user information columns now are frozen by default. In the old product, you had to decide to do that manually and make those changes, so when you started to scroll, you forgot who your students or their IDs were because it shifted as one big chunk. Now by default, these user columns will stay put on the left side, and when you scroll across your many columns as the semester or term goes on, you will still see who is connected to those bits of information. The management of column settings, like if you need to change the column name, that will be done within the Grade Center rather than back in an activity. For instance, if you wanted to change the name of your assignment, you change the column name in the Grade Center rather than back in the assignment tool. There is no longer a selection list. So in a previous training, I talked about the selection list. So if you wanted to define if a student was a junior or a senior in your course and have that preset and do the drop down, that type of feature is not in this product. And then the Grade Center does not allow for customization of decimal places. It's my understanding that it defaults to 2 places, and those are the choices you have. So again, remember that this is not necessarily an upgrade directly from WebCampus as you've known it prior to fall of 2013. It comes from another branch of the family, and so some features that you may have been used to did not travel because they are not part of this new product. So we're going to now transition to what I've been hinting at and talking about to the actual product. So bear with me as we switch to application sharing. And you're seeing paint on your screen the start page of my demo course in Blackboard Learn as part of the WebCampus pilot. Repeating what we indicated before, if you look on our left-hand side, you have course management. I have actual instructional tools. All of my Let's Get Started and essential information for my course is above. But in terms of grading, we're going to proceed below to course management, and I'm going to scroll down so that the Grade Center option is more fully in your screen. If it's not deployed here, take your arrow and expand Grade Center. So I compressed it, or collapsed it, and I'm expanding. So we talked about needs grading and full grade center. The full grade center is all of the columns that you have. Needs grading is the smart filter or smart view that shows you items for which students have completed work and it now needs to be manually graded. If you are doing graded multiple choice objective items that the system will provide a grade for, they will probably not show up in needs grading. However, if you do have short answer, narrative, paragraph items that need your specific human touch, you will probably see needs grading, including these entries. So here's needs grading for our selected 5 demo students. We'll slowly scroll through, knowing that your screen updates are going to be a little more distinct than mine. I'll let the screen kind of settle, and you see our different students have completed an assignment. They've done blog entries, they've done discussions, some of which are in groups as opposed to the whole class ones. And if I need to grade a particular student's attempt, then I can proceed here. So of course, in order to provide grades that we can work with, I would need to grade these. I'm not going to grade these right now, but you can see what is available in the needs grading portion or view. Switching now to our full grade center, you will see an interface that's very similar to what you will have experienced if you've been using WebCampus up to this point prior to this newer product being available. You have column layouts, but a number of the choices that you had are either in different positions, have additional, in most cases, functions, and in some cases also different names. So you have, as before, you have an ability to create a column, and there are different kinds of columns you can create. Note the interface is very different than the older product. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail for certain items, and so if you find that you are hinted at something that may sound very interesting to you, please follow up with your instructional designer. Among the things that you're seeing here is that instead of grading form, this product actually uses the word rubric. You do the same setup manually for the rubric as you did in the grading form in Vista. Primary display is an item that displays to you and the students. Secondary display is something related to that same content but is only viewable to you as the instructor. You can also categorize items. You have your due dates. You can also indicate if you want a column to be available in Grade Center calculations, and these calculations will be the last part of our agenda. I believe it's number 7. Here, instead of release to students, it's called show this column to students, and then you have the statistics. I'm going to do cancel at this point, since we don't really want to create one. As a preview to what we'll be doing later in the presentation, here are some of the pre-built, so to speak, calculated columns, including average, total, and weighted. You have manage, which can be kind of overwhelming. We are going to just talk about a couple of the options that are here. You have reports, and then you have the work offline. This is where you upload or import or download or export your content. So we have all of these students that have created their work, some of which needs to be graded. We need to look at what the students have completed and the columns that we have available for manipulation. So I'm going to now scroll down so that we are looking at our columns, and I'm going to slide across gradually to allow you to have your screens update with me on the available columns that we will see in my particular sample course. So we have an assignment. We'll see what this drop-down says. It says, if you see a black box, the black box actually says underneath it in yellow, live, it says click for more options. I'm going to click open this box, and so these are the options that are available. Proceeding across, and we'll talk about those green boxes with the white exclamation marks in just a moment. Moving across, moving across. So you see we have a number of items that have these green boxes, and then we go to the final set of columns here. Lots of things that require grades. Now, you see I have a practice test, and that should be A. For those of you that have just a black box showing up, it says click for more options. And I'm actually, if I hover, if you look at this area right above where it says possible, so when I hover, I can actually see what the point value possible as well as the total name for the column should it be truncated in my particular view. Over here, 2 columns over, I have the other practice test. So let's say you wish to have the 2 columns side by side. You can manipulate the layout so that those items can be moved around just like you had done before. Now, for those of you that have been worried about what the green exclamation marks, green boxes with the exclamation marks mean, here is the legend for the possible icons that you will see in the gradebook. So as you are looking at this blue box, we see that anything that has the green background with the white exclamation mark means it needs grading. Override is if you are having a grade that already was in place and need to change it. When it talks about users, it's referring to students. So if you have a black or gray circle with a red slash through it, that means that you may see the column, but the students wouldn't see that. That would be what they see in my grades. Back to our 2 practice test columns. To change the organization, you had a reorder option in the older product. Here we have column organization. I'm going to scroll down to where I can see the columns in question. Again, when it displays these, you have rows. In Blackboard Learn, you have a crosshatch. I think in your view, you still see my pointer. I'm going to click on the crosshatch that is to the left, practice test B, and slide it up and let go. And your screen should have updated so that the 2 assessments are now in adjacent rows rather than separated by the other item. So that's how you have one opportunity for changing the positions of your category, your columns in your course. When you've made all of your movements, you submit so that they will stick. Are there any questions so far? Okay. So we have looked at needs grading. We have the full grade center. we were starting to move columns and rows around. Let's go ahead and have some grades to actually look at. So I'm going to click on individual blog for student 04. I can apply the grade there. If I'm not sure what the value is, I just look above, and if you see the row, this is grade information bar, it says points possible, 15. And if I want to apply the grade because I know what they're going to do or what they're going to get without looking at the entry, I can certainly do it from here. I'm going to enter 1-5 and enter, and now their score is in place. You can also grade activities in the tool themselves. For the sake of our time, I'm going to just apply some random numbers to our different students, so we'll have some numbers to look at. Among the issues that people have had with grading in the previous tool were with group activities in the discussions. So you had multiple columns for the same thread, but you had to divide them up. Well, one of the tools seems to be a little more efficient here in that it actually recognizes that in one grouping students are eligible for grade and in another grouping students are not because they're not part of that group. So I'm going to slide back to our left to show you what I'm talking about. So after our assignment, we have a Module 2 discussion, but the students are actually divided into groups. And so the system has actually separated them, and you have these slate grayed out areas where you are not allowed to enter a grade because the student is not a part of that group. The column is there for the group. And when I'm hovering over this particular item where you have this grayed area, it says not participating. When it says not participating, you can't click in there to enter a grade. It's not eligible for a grade. For this student, I'm going to have needs grading. I'm going to have 100 points available. Student 04 did a wonderful job, and they get 100, as well as student 5. They get 100 as well. So you have the distinct columns. When you have group activities, it will define them accordingly. And this will be very important when we do move toward the calculated columns. Are there any questions on the, what does the down arrow show next to the score entry? I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't see your posting there. Cody, can we give Kevin the mic real quick and have him ask the question on the mic, please? Thanks.
Okay, Mike. Kevin, you should have the microphone now. Okay, if not, if you'd like to go ahead and type in your question there, just offer a little bit more clarification.
Okay. Okay, so Kevin wanted to know what happens when you click on the down arrow on the line where the green box is. So you have view grade details, exempt grade, and grade user activity. So grade user activity, you go in and you can enter in a more involved interface, you can grade the student activity. It doesn't necessarily show you the content up top, so please be aware that when you see this initially, you may think, oh, where's the content? For whatever reason, I don't know if it's a web layout issue, the entry ends up at the bottom. Okay, so I'm scrolling up and down. I know that your screen is going to be updating a little more slowly. I'm not going to grade it at this point because I'm going to come back and continue to answer the question. So we were here with a down item here. Earlier I mentioned exempt grade. So if for some reason, let's say student 07 had some catastrophe, couldn't do it, I can do exempt grade, and it pops out, and their grade, the box that is hovering over this blue slashed box now says grade exempted for this user. Finally, if you did want to make a comment after you did that, you can now add a comment to that, and then your grade details is that last choice. You're always presented in the key areas, the legend, in case you forgot. So the blue box, that's grade exempted for this user. Remember, user is the student. Returning to the grade center. Let's see, where are we here? You can do color coding. Haven't played with this tool particularly, but if you do like the visuals that can occur with color assignments, you can create some of your items here using this particular tool. You have criteria, so you can do some filtering and cancel out of that. You already have some built-in columns like total. Let's scroll down just a little bit more here so we can slide over to the left where we were. Reminder, remember the student data, the last name and first name are still there. Now, username, the login, and student ID slide along, but at least you have the names of your students fixed as a default as you move across. You also have last access, so instead of having to go in to student tracking like you had in the older product, you see up front when the student last did activities in the course. You have weighted totals, and we have our different items here. So we have a number of items that you will probably want to practice with as you set up so that you understand that there are very similar tasks that can be accomplished with this tool, but you have some options that have either altered your expectation of what they produce or have enhanced the features that were there before. As we're talking about that, let's talk about working offline, which is the export/import or download/upload. If you wish to bring a column to your computer so that you can do your grading locally and then put it back up in the system, you can do download. And this is where you can then select a column that you will pull, or you can get the whole item. And if you wish to also include comments that are connected with that, you can pull those in. So anything, the drop down is to be showing you the various eligible tools that I can, or columns that I can be pulling to my computer. If you're going to do more than one, go ahead and select the full grade center. Remember, because it's going to make it a generic file, you will have a delimiter of either a comma or a tab, and then you'll import it back into the Excel or worksheet program you're using for your adjustments. Then you have a download location. For some reason in my prep, I kept finding, even though I had my computer, I wanted to save to what is now called the course collection. You used to know it as the file manager. After I downloaded the file that it presented me, I then pulled it in. When you want to return a document to the system, you'll reverse the process, but then be given an opportunity to do something else. I'm going to click here on Upload, and I'm going to browse my computer. Let's see. When I sent the Excel file back up into the system for upload, it then presented me with this set of choices, and it allows me to now select which of the columns I do want it to actually upload. So that way I don't overwrite any content that I don't want to have altered. So if you really wanted to just do the two items that you were doing, let's say you had a paper that you wanted to grade not online but offline, like this Timothy West activity, then you could then provide it. This one's not eligible because I don't have any updates to make. I didn't make any changes. So that's upload and download in working offline. Those were called export and import in the WebCampus that preceded this version. Are there any questions? Can we assume that total excludes exemptions? Yes, but, and if we can hold on till we get to the weighted columns, we're going to talk about that, what that but part means, because exemptions and other items, when you deal with calculated columns, present unique issues, and it sounds like they're good time-saving options, but when you get to the meat of them, you have to be careful that you don't expect too much. So let me wrap up our talk about the upload and download before we move into the next topic, which is the calculated columns. Are there any other questions on just the upload and the download? You can cancel. I don't want to actually override what I have here. So you have, under Create Calculated Column, you have a number of choices. I'm just going to deal with average for the time being. You certainly have a number of choices presented up front that, because of the way this tool is, I see as a significant improvement in terms of user friendliness over the previous products. So let's try this. Remember, I moved the practice test A and B together. Let's say we want to create an average column that's just based on the two tests that are available so far. So I'll select average column, and let's scroll through to see what our choices are. I didn't highlight that when you have a column name and a grade center name, think of it as a label versus the title. One is probably more for you, and the other is more for the students. probably very much related. If you think about the primary display and the secondary display, if we hinted at it earlier, primary display is you and the students see that. Secondary display is just for you. So for the average column, you could have all of the grade columns, and then you can also just select certain ones. In the case of this particular example, we're just using selected. We'll talk about this choice right after that, after I've selected my columns. So I will scroll through. Note that this is significantly different than the interface for doing your calculations in the older product. What's also strange is that despite removing the columns practice test A and practice test B in the other view, the column positioning did not change when I do these selections. So that's just for display. It has nothing to do with how the system continues to see them. So I will average these two by first selecting and then popping them over. And now we're going to talk about calculate as a running total. So Kevin had this question about exemptions. The total and exemptions and what we would call null grades, these are grades that the student hadn't done the activity. So you would think that they should earn a 0, but you have to actually enter in a 0 if they earn a 0. I would assume that exemptions would be calculated accordingly, but please be careful with certain automatic preset smart filters or columns. Make sure that if you do it as a running total, you understand that it might give students a higher average as you go along. It's kind of nice to know that if you have not yet deployed an activity, it won't figure it out into the average. So for some of us that like to give the students some kind of semblance of what their progress is in the course without having multiple graded columns, the calculate as running total is a nice start, but be aware that there are these but things, these considerations, these caveats as to what they will be seeing. In particular, the null grades where they didn't do something, you can't just rely on the system having a non-entry to treat that as a 0. If the student is only going to enter earn a 0 in order for your running totals to make sense, you have to actually go to the trouble of entering the 0 into your grade. Show the column to students, show statistics. Again, release is not the description for the choice. Now it is called show this column to students. And then I'm scrolling back up. I'm sorry. I didn't actually do the name. So I'm going to call this test average and put them in different ways so that you will see the result. I'm going to scroll back down and then scroll to the right. So you see here, test average is spelled out in this particular view. And you see what the students scored as far as the two different quizzes. Now, I can't say that these are accurate numbers. For some reason, I don't know how this adds up to 100% when clearly student 4 only got 5 out of the 10 points. So bear in mind that you still have to look at those items to see what is actually happening. Just so the student option has been checked, I'm going to go to log out of my role here. I'm going to log in as one of the students. so you can see what students would be seeing. I'm going to do OE student. Again, I understand that your screen is updating much more slowly than mine. Allow you to get caught up. The reason I had to log out is that my grades is not available as a view as the instructor. We actually get a message saying you're not eligible to basically see it. So having logged in now as one of our practice students, I'm going to click on My Grades. And this is what the students would see as a result of the items that have been graded or not been graded. So students can see when you haven't graded something. The student sees that they were exempted from the discussion. And you see that down here for the My Grades, it just says Test Av rather than the spelled out. So one item is for what the students see, and the other field is what you see in your columns. Probably most people will switch them around so they can give the more verbose title to the My Grades. Any questions so far? So we've covered what the differences are in needs grading, or between needs grading and the full grade center. We navigated basically through the grade center, showing how some of the menu choices are similar and are different from the WebCampus tool of previous times. We moved the grade center columns around. We uploaded and downloaded, or talked about uploading and downloading grades, and we looked at one of the available calculated columns. I'm going to go back into my role as the instructor, and one last bit, because we're really not done with item 7, just take a peek at what your choices are for the total. So I'm expanding the grade center, doing full grade center, you have total column, scrolling down, so again, you can have all grade columns, you can have selected columns, and the consideration about calculating is running total. Remember my warning about the null grade, that the students are not supposed to receive credit for a lack of participation. You have to enter an actual 0. So it may seem like it's an exemption, but it's not intended by you there, but the system is seeing that. So before I turn it back over to Cody, just this last pair of items here. Assignments and tests are all their smart views that have already been preset by the system, and they're similar to needs grading. If you click on assignments, you will see just the columns. I'll scroll over here that are there using the assignment tool. So in lieu of the assignment drop box, you have this smart filter. Similarly, there is a smart view or filter for test. And so our 2 tests that we had, that we moved together, could have been moved together without us moving the column just by using this particular tool, this smart view. And that is some of the, these are some of the possibilities for the Blackboard Learn Grade Center.
All right, thank you, Rex. That was very informative. Let's take a moment and see if any of our participants have any further questions. Looks like, all right, it looks like we're good, so we'll go ahead and proceed. Please take a moment and fill out our survey. The URL is here, and I'm going to type it in the chat box for you. This will allow us to know your feedback. There's the link in the chat box. Please click on that and let us know how we can improve and what you particularly enjoyed from the webinar. And a reminder, when you leave the webinar, please, at the top, you'll see where it says help, and you can click leave session, and that will allow you to leave the webinar. So with that, if you'd like to contact the Office of Online Education, here is the contact email, the telephone number, fax, as well as our web address. Thanks again for participating, everyone, and thanks to our presenter, and may you all have a great day.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Pixie. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Juan.